Hello friends, welcome to Building the Alpha Dory. I'm Dan, and this is a project to build a Chamberlain Alpha Dory. Let's get to it and get out into the shop. Alright, so last video we were trying out this number one plank on the port side. So you can see we've got a nice tight fit between the plank and the number one and the garboard. A little bit of space up front here where the garboard's coming in a bit tighter than the number one, but that'll get pulled in when we rivet everything up, and it'll actually give the Alpha a little bit of the characteristic hollow that you see up near the forefoot. When we pull that in, it'll also pull the top edge of that garboard plank out a tiny bit. And like I say, you'll see how that shapes up. Also, this will get a little bit less curvature when this number one plank is planed down to its proper thickness. Right now it's pulling away a little bit more, partially because it's thicker than its final thickness. Now, I couldn't spile this plank on the boat at its full thickness, which is why one of the reasons we planed it before we scarfed it, or one of the reasons we planed it before we're drawing the line on it anyway. So what we're doing is we got it close to where it's going to end up in terms of thickness. We're drawing the line on it, and then I'm going to run it through the planer a few times at full length. It's just a lot easier to handle in the planer when it's not a full-length plank. When it's two 12-foot planks as opposed to one 24-foot plank, it's just a lot easier to move around. So now it's scarfed up, and we've drawn a pencil line along the inside, right parallel to the top edge of right at the top edge of the garboard plank. That's the spiling process for this Dory. You spile directly onto the plank you're going to use. There's no spiling, batten, and transferring numbers and whatnot. It's there's no reason to, because the plank itself is thin enough and light enough to act as a spiling batten. So why transfer the lines when you can draw it directly on the plank you're going to use? So anyway, got that marked out, and now we're ready to take this plank off and see where we can and how we can trim it. We know that from this line here that we just drew, we know that we need to add 1 1 1/8 in this direction, so an extra 1 1 1/8 below this line for the lap. All right, and then we'll see how much board we've got below that and where the knot holes are and whatnot, and then we'll check that against the top edge of the plank and see what we can lose and what we want to save as far as making this the best plank we can out of the best bits of the planking stock that we've got. All right, well, that's the idea, and let's get to it. Yeah, we got plenty of length on this board. I was worried that we weren't going to have enough length. I'm actually a little bit more concerned about the next board we got going, but I measured it a couple times and it looks like it's going to be long enough as well, so I definitely didn't need to worry about it on this plank here. So first thing I'll do is drop the back off. And we'll work our way forward from here. transom is coming in nicely. It's a little bit of a tuck to the garboard plank here at the transom, but this one seems to be pretty perfect. So, and I kind of knew that was going to happen because in the Alpha there was it ran just about completely fair on the garboard, and then I ended up starting to get a tuck in the when I got up near the shear. So if I've got a little bit of a, or almost a reverse tuck up near the shear. So if I've got a, now we're gonna take the kickstick out. There it goes. All right. Oh. All right. So that front one came off. So I'm just checking the scarf joint. This is the shortest I've let a scarf joint dry with the tight bond glue. It looks to have held just fine. It was sprung for probably a couple hours there. It doesn't seem to be pulling apart, so I don't think it's still moist. I don't think it's still damp inside. Alright. Right now is about when I start getting fed up with the amount of room in this shop. Okay, so it appears that we've got plenty of wood to work with here. So what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to add about 1 3/4 to the bottom edge and take off about 1.5 inches on the top edge, or 1 inch on the top edge. And then we'll run this through the planer and clean up the scarf joints. And Yeah, looks good. Looks good. I'm seeing a little bit of reverse curve to the shape towards the stern, which, just for ease of the planking, we may just straighten that out. It's not a lot of reverse curve, so and that's just the way the transom tucks up compared to the next board down on its yeah, okay, so we're good there. Alright, time to uncover the saw and get this plank cut. Okay, so this isn't typically how I do it, but that's what we're doing on this plank anyway. Since the board had an initial some curvature from the mill, we're going to cut a straight edge on it. Now most boards you get from the mill have a straight edge, so you're actually saving time by using a straight edge. Whereas this board has some curvature, we probably could have just used it or planed it, but I'm also trying to get rid of some knot holes. So I snapped a line on the plank where I want to cut the top edge of the board. Now what I'm going to do is, typically you just use the top edge of the board, so this is kind of an extra step. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down the line, the spiling line that we drew. I'm going to move it from here down 1.25 inches down 1.125 inches to compensate for the width of the lap, the overlap of the laps. And then I'm also going to take this measurement between the line I snapped and the edge of the board, because we used the edge of the board when we were putting the plank on the boat. So I'm also going to take the measurement between the new line, the new top edge of the board, and the actual edge, and I'm going to add that to the distance that I'm dropping this line down. And I'm going to use my long batten here to draw along those marks, and that'll give me, so I've got the top edge of the board snapped with the chalk line, and then the batten line will be the bottom edge of the board, then we can cut it out. It's a lot easier than it sounds. It just takes a lot of words to describe it. So I'll measure the 1.125 inches right there, and then I'll also measure how much the new top edge is dropped down, which is 1.5 inches. So 1.5 inches plus 1.125 inches. And I'm going to go to the first frame, which is right here where there's a break. And I'm at 1.16 inches. So I'll go down 1.16 inches, and then I'll go down 1.125 inches. Go to the next frame. I'm down a little less than 1 inch. I'll go a little less than an inch, and then I'll go 1.125. Putting another tick mark. And I can see where each of the frames is because there's a space in my line. So I'm just about on an inch here, which is a product of the curvature of the board I was telling you about. I'm at just an inch here. So I'm going to go down an inch and then go down 1.125. And here I'm at 3/4 of an inch. So I'll go down 3/4 of an inch, and then I'll go down 1.125. And then here, there's really no, well, it looks like 1/4 inch on the snap line. So I'll go down 1/4 inch, and then I'll go down 1.125. Okay, so I've got those marks. Now I'll go grab a couple of clamps and clamp the batten on those marks. Nice long batten here. Looks like it's going to be just long enough to do this whole plank. Okay, so right on the line there. I'm actually allowing the batten to even straighten out some of these. So I said there was a little reverse curve in the plank. So I'm allowing this nice fair batten to not put any kinks in the bottom edge of the plank. And this isn't so important at this point, but once you get up near the shear, the last plank or two, it'll be really visible. So you want a nice fair run to the plank edge. Mainly for looks. I mean, it's not going to affect the performance of the boat much. But you just want those lines to look nice. Otherwise, why are you bothering building a wooden boat, right? It's got to look good. And then what I'll do is I'll actually use this batten to run these lines right off the board, because I know once I get it over on the saw, I really only need to run it off on one side. Once I get it over on the saw, I'm going to need these lines to get my saw blades started in the right place in order to hit these lines right where I want them on the when they're actually part of the boat. So you need that line to lead your saw blade into the correct line, into the actually usable part of the wood. I'll just draw it off on this end just because I got the batten out and you never know which end I might end up putting through the saw. So for one reason or another I may want to spin it around, find out. Alright, so I've got the two lines that I'm cutting to the chalk line and the lap line. And that lap line did what I wanted to, cut out a number of knots, small knots, but got them out of the plank. And got a little bit of the pith out of the plank. And I got rid of some of this knot here, and got rid of some of this knot here, so that's good. Of course, those knots aren't all bad. Those knots will keep the plank from splitting along its grain, but the ones I'm trying to get out are ones that are near pith, and ones that look like they got a little bit of one edge of the knot is a little loose. So, and also, I'm not a huge fan of drilling out these knots. A lot of times you'll see a boat and they've drilled all the knots out of it and plugged it with wood plugs and all. They put glue in it. Well, that's great, but I mean, the knots grew as part of the tree. What's the likelihood they're going to fall out, especially if it's a hard knot? None. Versus drilling it out and then putting a little plug with glue in it. Like, that glue's not going to last forever either. So, yeah, you gotta kind of wonder. So other than the fact that there's no room in my shop for pretty much anything, this is the real reason why I've got the table saw outdoors. I need a 40-foot, well, more than 40-foot shop to run a 24-foot board through it. Gosh, I'm nice and close on that one. Didn't go over. Alright, so I didn't get quite as close on that second pass, but plenty close enough, especially down this end. So yeah, I'll be able to play into that line pretty easily. And yeah, looks good. Looks good. So I'll bring it in on the bench and finish it up to both lines. See, I left a little bit so that I've still got the line so I can play into it rather than going on the other side of it. You're just saving yourself time cutting close to the line. You're wasting time because you're screwing it up if you go beyond the line. So it's better to leave a little extra than to take too much. Thanks for watching Building the Alpha Dory. I hope that you're enjoying the series, and hopefully some of this info will be able to be used on some of your projects in the future. Wishing you guys all the best, and God bless. Have a great day.